If you're loving this podcast, be sure to check out the full lineup. From news and local politics to sports and true crime. Find your next great listen right now at duluthnewstribune.com/podcasts. That's duluthnewstribune.com/podcasts.
Hello, Northlanders. It's Friday, January 27th. I'm Wyatt Buckner with your Duluth News Tribune Minute, presented by Minnesota Power Employees Credit Union.
The average MPECU member saves over $785 a year in better rates and lower fees. And with MPECU, every ATM is your ATM. With their free checking program, you get ATM fee reimbursements at any ATM anywhere in the U.S. Check out Minnesota Power Employees Credit Union services online at mpecu.com or visit their offices in downtown Duluth, Arrowhead Road, or Miller Trunk Highway.
It's Friday, and if you're looking for some fun weekend ideas, Duluth News Tribune arts and entertainment reporter Jay Gabler has some options in this week's Best Bets.
What's more wintry than the St. Paul Winter Carnival, more northerly than the Great Northern, and cooler than the Cool Fool Kite Festival? It's the Lake Superior Ice Festival, an annual event taking place today and tomorrow in Superior. The main action is on Barker's Island. We're talking about ice sculptures, ice racing, ice carousels, ice mini golf, and more. If you need to warm up, don't worry, there are also indoor activities at nearby landmarks, including you get an opportunity to have a first go at a new escape room that's coming to the Bong Center. The theme? Unlock the Chest of Heroes. That is today and tomorrow in Superior. Tomorrow here in Duluth, we have one that I'm really curious about. So you've heard of the Duluth Does series of tribute concerts that happen at Sacred Heart Music Center. So in the past, these concerts, which have Duluth or regional local musicians covering a well-known artist, they've tended towards rootsier artists, like Duluth Does Willie Nelson, Duluth Does Bonnie Raitt, Duluth Does Eric Clapton, and of course, Duluth Does Bob Dylan. But tomorrow, it's going to get a little bit more prog because it is going to be Duluth Does Pink Floyd. There are over 24 local acts participating, and the set is going to feature, organizers promise, deep cuts, hits, and even, quote, a Sid favorite or two. That would be a reference to Syd Barrett, who is the original frontman of Pink Floyd and left the band in 1968 before they really blew up. So it's the real hardcore Pink Floyd fans who know those Syd Barrett songs. We'll see who those might be here in the Northland. One more thing I'll mention actually is a play happening in St. Paul. St. Paul, why are we talking about St. Paul? Well, here's why. Because it is a play about the root beer lady. Okay, now you know who I'm talking about. Dorothy Moulter, the iconic last legal non-Indigenous resident of the Boundary Waters. She lived from 1907 to 1986 and is known as the root beer lady because she would make root beer that she would sell to passing canoeists. Playwright Kim Schultz, who both wrote the one-person play and is portraying Dorothy Moulter in the show, says that she was just an absolutely fascinating person. Now I'm quoting playwright Kim Schultz, quote, "She was a woman who broke mores and standards. She chose not to get married, and she chose to live alone in this very isolated part of the country." So that play is now playing at the History Theater in St. Paul, where it runs through February 19th. So if you are a Boundary Waters buff and you will be down in St. Paul, you might want to consider checking that out. For more on these and other events this week in the Northland, go to duluthnewstribune.com. I'm Jay Gabler.
Now, here's a look at today's headlines. The Biden administration will ban new mining on federal land within the same watershed as the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness for the next 20 years. Secretary of the Interior Deb Haaland signed a public land order Thursday preventing new mineral leases on 225,500 acres of the Superior National Forest in northeastern Minnesota. Mining is already banned in the Boundary Waters, but there has long been concern that copper-nickel mines, if built in the Rainy River watershed surrounding the wilderness area, would send toxic runoff into the downstream Boundary Waters. The move comes after the Forest Service released a study in June that said hard rock mining within the watershed would pose an environmental risk to the Boundary Waters. Pro-mining advocates say the industry would bring much-needed jobs to the region, could be done safely, and want the projects to be reviewed individually rather than rejected through a blanket ban on mining. The Biden administration has long signaled its intention to restrict mining within the Rainy River watershed, returning to Obama-era restrictions that effectively killed the proposed Twin Metals copper-nickel mine, but were subsequently reversed by the Trump administration. The U.S. Interior and Agriculture Departments in October 2021 announced they would not allow new federal mineral leases within 225,500 acres of the Rainy River watershed, which is shared with the Boundary Waters, for 2 years with the possibility of extending it to a 20-year withdrawal. The next day, the Interior's Bureau of Land Management said it would deny an application for a third federal mineral lease and a batch of prospecting permits for Twin Metals, which has been trying to build an underground copper-nickel mine, processing plant, and dry stack tailing storage facility on the edge of Birch Lake, which flows into the Cowish-Wee River and then the Boundary Waters. Thursday's decision further scuttles Twin Metals' plans. But the company, a subsidiary of Chilean mining giant Antofagasta, sued the Biden administration in August in an attempt to regain its mineral leases canceled by the administration earlier that year. The mineral withdrawal will not affect valid existing rights within the area, and the move will not impact existing iron ore mines. Duluth officials have kept hush about emerging plans to renovate the downtown public library, despite recent requests from the News Tribune. But the minutes of a December 20th special meeting of the Duluth Public Library Board make it clear a massive project could be in the works. The stated purpose of the meeting was to discuss the tight timeline to complete a strategic plan as the city prepares to seek state bonding funds during the 2024 legislative session. That anticipated request could be for $20 million, according to the meeting minutes. It goes on to say, quote, "An additional $20 million will be sourced from the Federal Coronavirus Capital Projects Fund, nonprofit fundraising, and redirection of facility operating savings to city debt service," end quote. A proposal to relocate Duluth's Workforce Development Center to the current library building could apparently help unlock state support for the project, according to a summary of discussion points at the meeting. A prospective timeline for the project was laid out by Jim Philby-Williams, Duluth's Director of Parks, Properties, and Public Libraries. It called for the submission of a preliminary draft project pre-design to the state by June, with a final pre-design due in October. But first, the library must revisit its strategic plan. The city has received a proposal to update the strategic plan with help from a St. Paul-based nonprofit, Library Strategies. The minutes state $15,000 in city funding has already been secured for the work. 2 more requests for proposals will also be forthcoming, one for a pre-design by an architectural firm at a possible cost of up to $250,000, the other a community engagement proposal at a cost of up to $50,000. The city intends to ask the Duluth Library Foundation to help ease its financial burden by covering half the cost to put those materials together. Duluth has been talking about the need to update or even replace its downtown library since 2014, when it hired consultants to evaluate the facility and assess the city's options. An Ely teen who stabbed his 13-year-old brother more than a dozen times and left him for dead in a ravine has been found guilty of an adult-level attempted murder charge. Judge Robert Friday on Tuesday convicted Michael William Hoppola in the October 2020 incident near Miners Lake. Authorities said there was no apparent reason why Hoppola, then 16, lured his younger brother into the woods and stabbed him at least 13 times before dragging the boy to a concealed area near the water on a chilly morning. Hoppola reportedly returned to the scene hours later and again left the victim to bleed out. The 13-year-old, who was eventually discovered by passing hikers, suffered injuries to his neck, legs, arms, chest, and hand, and underwent surgery during a 2-week hospital stay, according to court documents. Hoppola was initially charged in juvenile court, but the St. Louis County Attorney's Office successfully petitioned to have him certified as an adult in December 2021. Defense attorney Laura Whiteside challenged the move and raised a mental illness defense. Hoppola, now 18, was scheduled for a jury trial last week, but he opted against a contested proceeding, reaching an agreement with prosecutor Leah Stauber to submit the case to Judge Friday based on 124 stipulated exhibits, including police reports and physical evidence. Judge Friday issued only a general finding of guilt to the sole count of attempted intentional second-degree murder. He has another week to issue a memorandum explaining his verdict. A sentencing date is expected to be scheduled in the coming months. Now convicted as an adult, Hoppola is expected to face a presumptive prison term in excess of 12 years under state sentencing guidelines. He remains at the St. Louis County Jail. Now here's a look at your forecast, brought to you by the Women Today 6th Annual Rosie Awards.
Duluth weather forecast for today. Snow coming to an end this morning, but it will be fairly blustery through the day. Southwest winds around 15 to 20, turning northwest and gusting as high as 35 during the afternoon. For tonight, mostly cloudy, turning colder with temperatures dropping to around 5 below. And then on Saturday, sunny and cold with a high in the single digits. The cold weather will likely linger on and through much of next week, with several sub-zero days expected. I'm Storm Tracker meteorologist John Wheeler.
Thank you to the Rosie Awards for their support. Northland women are a driving force in our community. They are advocates, mentors, volunteers, and leaders. Nominate a special woman you think deserves to be recognized at thewomantoday.com or by email at dearrosie@thewomantoday.com. Nominations are now open and continue through January 31st. Reporting for today's episode was done by Jimmy Lovren, Peter Passy, and Tom Olson. Thank you for listening to Duluth News Tribune Minute. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you back here on Monday.